Hey everybody, it's Booray from Tampa, Florida, and today I'm going to explain everything you need to know about lens flare. Before we get started, don't forget to check out my podcast. It's called Photobomb. It's available anywhere that podcasts can be found. Join my group, Pro Photo Talk with Booray Perry. It's on Facebook, and be sure and follow me on Instagram at Booray Perry. All right, let's talk about lens flare. Lens flare is one of those things that it seems really simple, but then the more you look at it, the more interesting it becomes. That happens a lot when I'm making this series. By the way, this is a series, Booray Explains, if you're just now watching this video for the first time, and I encourage you to check out the whole series. I'll put a link down in the below, and I'll also maybe put something up here somewhere. And I start with very simple concepts in photography, and I'm working my way up the chain. So anytime you've got I'm just not sure about what this is or what that is, come check out this series, and hopefully I will have addressed it in there, and I'll be able to explain it to you. All right, so lens flare is caused a couple of different ways. Technically, what it is light getting into your camera in a way that you don't want it getting into your camera. That's the official term. So it comes in a couple of different ways. First, there's the lens flare where light comes into your lens from an angle that is not on angle with the thing that you're photographing. Let me put that in better terms for you. Let's say you're taking a picture of my face. So what you're taking a picture of is all the light that's reflected off of my face and off of the closet behind me, and it's coming into your camera lens. But if light comes from someplace else into your camera lens, like say over here, and it comes at an angle, it's not in front of your camera lens, it's over here, and it's coming in at an angle. That light will then sometimes come into your camera and bounce or skip around off the elements inside your camera, off of your lenses, and they will create a lens flare. A lot of times you see this as like a streak with little dots in it sometimes of light that will come across your lens. This is lens flare. And the other type of lens flare is when you actually point your camera directly at a bright light source. The camera will be overwhelmed. The light will come in and it will flare off of some of the glass inside of your camera, and this will give you also a type of lens flare. There's ways to avoid lens flare. First of all, the better glass you have, the better lenses that you have, the less likely you are to have lens flare. The more expensive lenses, they put more work into the glass. Also, prime lenses tend to not have as much lens flare as zoom lenses, because zoom lenses have several different elements of glass. More elements of glass means more likely that one of them is going to get a flare popping off of it. But the most popular way, the most common way, is a lens hood. So all you have to do is put a lens hood on the front of your camera like this, and this will help to cut down on the flare, because now the light that's trying to come in at an angle will hit this lens hood and hopefully not make it into the camera. If you don't have a lens hood, you can always just use your hand. There have been many times if I'm without a lens hood or without a lens hood, or even if the lens hood isn't quite doing the job, sometimes if you see a flare coming in, you can just put your hand out like this and try and, it's tricky because you have to get your hand up to where it blocks the flare, but where it's not also visible in the photograph. So you kind of have to work with it. But that's the whole purpose of a lens hood. And I would greatly encourage you to keep lens hoods on your cameras all the time. I keep a lens hood on my camera constantly, even if I'm shooting indoors, because it just protects the camera. Right? If you drop the camera, if you drop it on the lens hood might just save you from cracking the glass on the front of your lens. So it's not a bad idea just to keep a lens hood on your camera. Also, if you have a camera like the X100V, it's fun to have a lens hood because there's just so many cool lens hoods that you can put on the camera. I have a whole video about my favorite lens hoods that I put on this camera. Lens hoods can be great. So, lens flare. It's a bad thing, right? You don't want lens flare to come in and ruin your picture. Unless you do want lens flare to come in, because sometimes lens flare can actually make your picture better. There's a lot of connotation and sometimes emotion that comes along with lens flare, and a lot of the reason for this is because of nostalgia. Back in the day, film cameras, back in the 50s and the 60s and so forth, a lot of amateurs taking pictures with cameras that did not have lens hoods, did not have good optics, and so they're much more prone to get lens flare in their pictures. Now, you grow up seeing these pictures, or you see pictures of your parents, and there's more lens flare, And it creates in your mind this sense of nostalgia of the good old days. Everybody thinks things were better in the past. So things that are old, they give you a warm, fuzzy feeling. So many times you will shoot with lens flare in your photograph on purpose because you want to give this look of nostalgia and this look of amateurism. Yeah, I know it's weird when you're trying to become a better photographer and then you would purposely try to look like you're not that good of a photographer. But everything has an emotional connotation to it. And so you'll see this in advertising a lot of times. Kids playing outside in the sun and there'll be lens flare. And the idea is to make it seem more like, just an amateur snapshot of a kid that was taken. You'll see it in professional work all the time. I myself use it a lot. I've shot a lot of weddings on the beach. And I will absolutely use lens flare because not only does it give you a nostalgic feeling, but it will also give you a bright, sunny day feeling, right? You see lens flare, and there's no doubt that it's bright and sunny, and that's what you're trying to convey. It's bright, sunny. You're trying to convey a mood, so you use the lens flare to convey that mood. Sometimes you just use it because you like it. Sometimes you just find creative ways to use lens flare. It's just another tool in your toolbox. So even though most people talk about trying to eliminate lens flare, what it's really about is controlling lens flare and using it the way that you want to use it and only when you want to use it. Now you'll see it also in cinematography a lot, and there is no one who is more guilty of this than Abrams. Abrams. What's his first name? What's Abrams' first name? Jeff Abrams? Is it Jeff Abrams? Anyway, he loves it. And to the point to where it's almost just crazy how much he uses it in the Star Trek films. If you watch the Star Trek films, oh my God, the lens flare is everywhere. At first it was kind of cool, but then it just got ridiculous, especially if you're a photographer. You just noticed it nonstop. You're like, okay, really, enough with the lens flare. J.J. Abrams, thank you. His name is J.J. Abrams. So you absolutely want to just kind of conquer and control lens flare. Use it when you want to use it, know how to prevent it when you don't want to use it. And it's that simple. That's lens flare. Keep watching because I'm going to keep doing these definitions until hopefully I have told you everything you need to know to be a fantastic professional style photographer. Thanks for watching.